Hi, this is Rob.
And I'm Jess.
And tonight's episode of Geeky Dreadful, we will be discussing werewolves in media, specifically our favorite and least favorite werewolves in terms of design and execution.
We'll be starting with our worst or least favorite, going to favorites, as well as a few honorable and dishonorable mentions. You want to start us off, Rob, with
Sure.
your least favorite?
One of them. Okay. I will start with the one that is also a honorable mention because the design itself is one of my favorites, but the CGI that was used to bring them to the screen was extremely disappointing, and that is Van Helsing.
Oh, Van Helsing.
We might do a review of that somewhere down the road. But, I really love the designs of all of them. I actually think my favorite, just in terms of the look, is actually the gray one at the beginning, in terms just of the structure, and the fact that it's the only one that actually moves on all fours.
Yeah.
But
I'm a little partial to the sexy Black Wolf at the end.
The rock star.
Oh, yeah.
I mean...
Ooh, that mane and a six-pack.
Stephen Sommers literally wrote in the script that he turns into the biggest, baddest, sexiest werewolf.
You can tell that he gave that note to the designers. They took that to heart.
Yeah, and I do love the look of the black werewolf at the end, the Van Helsing werewolf, but at the same time, it's too... There's something too...
Polished?
Yes. Maybe too sexy.
It's too sexy. I liked I do say with the Grey Wolf, I appreciate that his fur, the way the colors were kind of white and gray, did very much look like a wolf's fur.
Yeah, and I appreciate that Steven took the time to make sure each wolf was distinct.
Like, you can tell they're all the same species, but...
They each have different, not just different in fur color, but body structure and face structure.
Yeah, so...
Even different ears.
Yeah, it was very interesting. It was very interesting. You don't get a lot of media that really differentiates each individual werewolf. So I think that was a very unique concept. And I really do wish the CGI had been a little bit better, because I think the problem was they just a little too animated, cartoonish.
I think that's why the gray one is also my favorite, because in terms of the CGI, I think it looks the best.
Yeah.
Less cartoonish. The Van Helsing one is kind of brief, but in some parts it's okay, but then there's these shots where it looks...
Especially its face.
Yeah. And then the Van Helsing werewolf at the climax...
I think you mean the Velkin. You said Velkin.
Okay.
You said Van Helsing?
Okay, no. The Velkin wolf...
Yeah.
...is mostly okay. My big problem with the Van Helsing wolf is the face. And how... And I think a lot of it boils down to the eyes. There's something too human about them.
Yeah.
And I feel like that might have been deliberate on Steven's part. But I honestly...
I think the other thing is, now that I'm thinking about it, the head on the Van Helsing werewolf actually kind of looks like a black German Shepherd.
You know what? You're right, it does.
I think that kind of throws me off and adds to the slightly cartoonish, animated feature look of it.
Yeah.
He's like a really cranky German Shepherd. He's just... but, yeah. An honorable mention, but the disappointment I understand.
Yeah. Alright, the next one. This one is one you are not familiar with, so I will be doing most of the talking.
Right
and
ahead.
That is the Beast from Teen Wolf. Which, if you've watched the show...
Isn't it the Beast of Gavaldon?
La Bête de Gavaldon.
Yeah.
Yes. Which, if you're familiar with the show, you know what I'm talking about. If you're not familiar with the show, minor spoilers, the Beast is the main villain of the latter half of Season 5 of Teen Wolf, and its identity is not revealed until near the end. Basically, it's a reincarnation of the Beast of Gavaldon, which is like the history's most dangerous, most powerful werewolf. And it has a cool transformation where the person gets enveloped in this black, shadowy smoke that kind of then forms into the beast.
Mm-hmm.
And it also because of that, it can keep its clothing. But then when you see this thing, and I like the way how when it moves, there's like smoke almost curling off of it, like it's made out of smoke or shadow. But then you actually get to the design when you actually see the thing, and it looks like this big, muscly, veiny Hulk thing with a face that looks like a skinless pit bull.
You know what it looks like to me?
What?
Smiley dog.
Oh my god, you're right. I can't unsee that now.
That's the first thing I thought of.
And it's really, and Teen Wolf I know has never been the best. Okay, I'm going to say the best place to go to for werewolf designs, because some of their regular monster designs, like the Kanima and the Berserkers, are actually pretty solid monster designs. And then Peter Hale's Alpha Werewolf form in Season 1 is actually a pretty solid werewolf design that I would say is a almost honorable mention.
Yeah, I was fairly happy with that one.
And this thing, like, they build it up as, like, the most dangerous, most powerful creature in the supernatural world. And so you're expecting it to look really cool. And then you see it, and it just...
It's like sci-fi smiley dog.
And much like Season 1 of Teen Wolf with Peter's wolf form, the CGI starts off really bad and gets progressively better towards the end, but also in some ways also gets worse. But I mean, what can I expect given that this show had this cool drawing of like the prophesized battle between the Beast and the Hellhound, and then one looks like a big shadowy pitbull smiley dog thing, and the other is just a naked guy on fire with sharp teeth.
It's MTV. What are you gonna do?
It's Jeff Davis. What am I gonna do?
Alright.
Okay, next one is Late Phases, and I'm sad about this one because I genuinely really like Late Phases.
Late Phases is actually a really good werewolf movie. Just a really good movie, honestly.
Oh, sorry. Late Phases Night of the Wolf, which is what it's called, and if you buy the DVD at Walmart. Because apparently you can't, if it's a werewolf movie, Late Phases doesn't work as a title unless you throw in Night of the Wolf.
Yeah.
But
whatever.
the werewolf action is very brief. It's in the beginning, and then they spend the rest of the movie building up to who the werewolf is. And then during the climax, we finally see the werewolf suits, and they don't look remotely werewolf-like. They're very vampire-like creatures.
To me, they look like furry goblins.
They do, actually. It's not and this isn't a knock against the makeup guys. The suits, they're professionally made, and they're designed well. It's just
the actual product, the actual suits in the movie, as far as the quality, is good. Like, this is not a knock on the quality of the suits and everything. It's just, the design itself is just so bizarre for werewolves.
Yeah.
That's really what the problem is.
It's very unfortunate, too, because, like I said, this movie is actually probably one of the better werewolf movies to come out in the last decade.
Yes.
But, I mean, speaking of bad designs, my next one is American Werewolf in Paris. Which
is also on my list.
I had a picture somewhere and it's lost now, but there was an interview where they talked to the original people who were going to work on the monsters in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And they were very much going to make something that was that was like the London Wolf, but had a body more like the body in Paris. And the way the body was shaped, I actually really liked. It was like this mixture of a wolf and a tiger, which is what the guys said they were going for. They wanted this big 600-pound alpha predator that was just roaming under the city. And they wanted it to be presented in a way that made it feel like a real living animal. And instead we get these weird CGI baboon pigs.
Yeah. Ooh. They look so bad. That movie was so bad.
Yeah, that movie's really bad. And probably has one of the worst line deliveries I've ever heard in a movie. When the lead guy, Tom Everett Scott, is that his name?
I think that's who it was.
When Seraphine is starting to transform after she throws him down a hole, and he just goes, "Seraphine, what's wrong?"
That's kind of how he delivered every line, to be honest.
But that was the most noticeable, because given the situation they were in, his voice doesn't change at all. It was so embarrassing.
It really was. It really was.
It had a cool Bush song.
Yes. The one good thing that came out of it. And last up on your least favorites?
Cursed. Which is probably another movie we're also going to talk about, given the nightmarish production it went through.
Oh my gosh.
And including with the werewolves, because Rick Baker was originally going to work on it, and even had some designs that he posted on his Instagram that looked better than what we got. And again, this isn't a knock on what KMB made, because I do think it works fine as a werewolf suit, mostly. It's just the face looks very... There's something off about it. And the fact that...
And its ears, especially its ears.
Yes.
It looks like a rabid giant Ewok.
Yeah, like, especially the scene when Joni transforms near the end, and now granted that was CGI, but it literally looks like a teddy bear that's gone rabid.
Yeah, it's...
And it was like Rick Baker's designs, well, were not something I would have put on my favorite. What I liked were how he designed it, where you were going to be able to see human elements, and she was going to keep a more feminine build. And instead she turns into this big bulky Ewok thing that flips the finger. I wonder what Derek Mears thinks about that.
I mean, that's a pretty iconic moment, to be fair.
This is true.
You know, do you get much better than a giant werewolf flipping someone off because you body shamed them?
And then saying shit the second the cops start shooting her.
Yeah! That was... Oh my gosh. It's a great comedy.
Yeah.
It
also features two
Lex Luthor. I was literally about to say that. Two
Jinx.
Lex Luthors. Okay, well, I owe Rob a soda. Okay, so that was it for your list, right?
Yeah.
Okay, well, Cursed is also on mine, and a lot of it is because of the bad CGI and the weird bearish, not really bearish, teddy bearish qualities. Like evil teddy bear. Like Teddy Clow looks like it could have been this thing's offspring.
Also, the fact that its hair color changes.
Yeah.
Because I'm pretty sure they used a different suit when it's in the garage. Because it looked dark, like black. It had like black hair, and then it's like a light brown.
I can't remember. But...
Unless that was supposed to be Jake.
Dun
dun dun. I mean, that would have been actually a funny if they could have just thrown that line in there to justify him suddenly just going insane in the climax.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, we'll save that for another video, though.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in the review we do sometime.
Yeah. Also, on my least favorites, it would be American Werewolf in Paris. And it's, like, I personally am not a huge fan of American Werewolf in London. The movie or the design. And so it wasn't like it went from something so amazing to something so bad for me. It's just that it was just so bad. I mean, you know, we talked about how in Van Helsing, the actual designs of them, we really liked. It was just the final product, the quality of the CGI that just really ruined it for us. If they looked like that but looked more realistic, it would have been bad. It was just bad CGI and bad design coming together to create something that just looked so unfathomably cheesy. It was, ugh.
Yeah, it was bad.
Yeah. Next on my list would be Buffy Season 3.
Yes. With that one, what I liked about, the positive thing I liked about it is actually the way the fur was.
Uh-huh.
And just the fur coloring with the black and then the kind of the white underbelly.
Mm-hmm.
And its little weird tail. Because sometimes you get those werewolves with these little tails that almost end up looking like rat tails, and they somehow managed to not make this one look like a rat tail.
But, it was... I think why this one is on my least favorite list is just because they went from one that looked... You know, it wasn't great, but it worked for the show. It worked with the tone and the budget and everything, and then they went to something that was just so bizarre.
What kills me about it is in its first episode when we really see him, he doesn't even have sharp teeth in the wolf form. They gave him a different set of teeth in season 4 that actually had wolf canines, but in the first season, no.
Yeah.
The teeth look almost completely human, except a little bigger. And it's a werewolf.
Yeah.
I will say I liked... This isn't anything about the design. I liked whoever the stunt person was who portrayed the werewolf. I thought he actually had some pretty good body language, the way he would just launch himself at people.
Yeah.
Because I did like that fight he had with... I can't even remember the villain of that his first episode in season 3, but he has a fight with the monster of the week.
Yeah.
In the library. And I thought that was a pretty good but short...
monster fight.
Yeah.
Next up is a not very well known straight to DVD movie, Big Bad Wolf, which features the werewolf Freddy Krueger.
He makes a lot of jokes.
It's an awful design and an even worse movie. Do not recommend.
I'm going to slightly disagree. I will agree in that
design?
the movie is not very good at all. The design, I don't know. There's something about it that I like, especially in terms of I can be kind of picky in terms of the more Wolfman, more humanoid style werewolves. And there's something about that one. I think my biggest problem with it is the ears. But there's something about it that is very...
Well, for me, the problem was all in the head and the face. There's something very...
In certain angles, the face bothers me, but the way it was lit a lot of the time, it just, I don't know, it worked with me. I liked that there was almost this demonic nature to it, which kind of in a way that I would compare it to one of the werewolves on my favorites that I'll get to.
Like, I remember seeing a screen cap or a still of it that I was like, oh, that actually looks pretty cool. And then I saw the actual face and was just, oh. It looks it looks like somebody who was trying to make a serious horror movie about Man, Bear, Pig.
I can understand that. I can see where you're coming from with that, because there are some parts, especially...
And it just kills me.
Especially at the end after he's burned and loses most of his hair.
Or it just kills it for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it just kills it for me, and so...
It is sad because the movie has a kind of 80s slasher tone, and you don't really see that a lot with werewolf movies.
You really don't.
And
if only it hadn't been such trash.
It also has a hilarious line where, at the beginning attack, when one of the girls is freaking out, and the guy just points to their room and just screams, "Shut up and get your clothes on!" And just the way he says it, and so abruptly says it, is so unintentionally hilarious. Not so unintentionally hilarious as when she basically gets her breast ripped off in the next scene.
Yeah, and then, yeah, it was like that happened and we're laughing and then it goes on and then we're like,
Yeah.
I didn't even finish it.
Oh, so you missed the best part, how they find out he's the werewolf, which we'll talk about later.
How about we don't talk about it at all?
Okay, that works too.
Maybe one day, but it's a story for if we ever do a review of it. Anyway, so last and very much least, I almost put this in my honorable mentions because it's putting it on here. I felt kind of. I almost felt like I shouldn't, because it might imply there was some effort put into this. Effort was not put into this at all. The supernatural werewolf.
Oh, supernatural.
Which basically looks like a slightly rabid underworld vampire.
With claws.
Yeah. The milky blue eyes, slightly sharp teeth, and claws. And maybe tasseled hair. Maybe.
Yeah, I mean, there's really not much you can say. Of course, Supernatural has a problem with that, where a lot of their monsters basically end up looking the same. I mean, the vampires looked more distinct than the werewolves, just because because of the needle teeth that come out of their gums
and their eyes.
Yeah, their eyes reflecting off like.
Actually, the way they handled the vampires really felt very lycanthropic to me.
At least in season 1, I think they did some retcons down the road in season 10 or
whatever the hell season it was.
Yeah.
Who even knows?
Also, on the subject of wolf things, I actually saw a clip from a later season where the villain of the week is Fenrir. Yes, that Fenrir. And he gets teeth and claws and his eyes glow amber, and then temporarily, much like how you know when the angel's wings briefly pop out in shadow, he gets an aura of a CGI wolf face snarling for a moment. And this is Fenrir.
Wow.
And then he dies very easily.
Anyway, moving on from this garbage show that I hate. So, just honorable mentions. These are the ones I just couldn't... We didn't hate them enough to put them on. Or maybe we hated them too much.
Yeah. Okay, the first one is the obvious one, which is anytime they use real wolves. And, look, I understand that is the original folklore in a lot of the times, and obviously you want to respect that.
I don't mind it sometimes, we have a friend who loves when they use real wolves.
There's certain environments where I think it works. Like, it works on the show, the short-lived show Wolf Lake. Mm-hmm. But...
so many of the time... I would say worse than when they use real wolves is when they use dogs.
So the Gates.
There were a couple others, but yes, the Gates does come to mind.
But the problem with it isn't just that it feels lazy, or that you're trying to be cheap and save money. It's also because it's a wild animal, and you can train it to do all the sorts of things, but at the end of the day, it's still a wild animal. I always think about the trivia with the original Fright Night and how the scene when Eddie turns into a wolf and runs down a hall. They had to have 2 wolves because and neither one really wanted to behave. And that was for a 10-second shot of a wolf running out of a room and coming down a hallway. And they needed 2 wolves.
So then you're very limited. And the other thing is, I really feel like there's a huge disconnect between the character. And that might work in some cases, but in a lot of times, I think it really hurts it.
And there's very little you can do with... And that's why a lot of the times, even now, when people have their wolves look like real wolves, more often than not, they will just make them CGI.
Yeah.
Like, the Shadowhunter show did that. The originals really started doing that down the road, like, just using CGI wolves so they could easily interact with the actors more.
Yeah. So, another is, in the same vein as Supernatural, Teen Wolf, other things, where it's kind of going for, like, a Wolfman vibe, except they barely do anything. I'm sorry! Pointy teeth and weird eyes and bad sideburns does not a werewolf make.
And brows. They do prosthetic brows.
Sometimes.
Sometimes. Mainly with Derek.
Yeah. Yeah, mainly on Teen Wolf. But to me, it just looks like you're putting bad bad sideburns on a Buffy vamp face.
Basically.
And it just doesn't work for me. You had a dishonorable mention that I didn't fully agree with.
Yes, the first Ginger Snaps is kind of a dishonorable mention. I really love the wolf in Ginger Snaps too, but the wolf in the first one, it's a great creature suit, and in certain shots it does evoke a very eerie, frightening vibe. But something about the face and how, like, the eye area almost looks like it's bulging out, like air bubbles, and that
and
rat.
They are very slanted.
Yeah, and that rat tail.
Narrow.
And
it is a odd design, but I'm not sure. I just have a weird affinity for it.
I can respect that. And like I said, I really like the one in the second one. It was like they took the first one and kind of
made it a little more wolfy.
Yeah, they made it more wolf-like.
I love the breasts, okay? I love that they were full on. This is a female monster. And it's not sexy at all.
No, it's definitely not.
It is very female and very feminine, but very not sexy. And I really loved that. I appreciated that. I respect that. Okay, another dishonorable mention is... This one really could have gone on my worst of, but I didn't want to spend that much time on it. I'm really just going to say the name and then move on. But the female werewolf forms in Tarot Curse of the Black Rose.
Actually, it's Witch of the Black Rose.
Witch of the Black Rose. Whatever! I don't care!
For those who don't know
Scrooge and Balint.
For those who don't know what we're talking about, it's a very bad horror comic where the
male werewolves are these big, bulky Van Helsing type things, and then you've just got nude women with wolf heads
and wolf tails.
And they're comics, and somehow in this comic, it still looks photoshopped. It still looks like they photoshopped a wolf head onto a female body, and the proportions don't even match up. And also, she's nude. Totally nude. Skin is hairless.
This is a comic with haunted vaginas.
Yeah. Anyway.
Okay, my favorite werewolf forms, and it was hard narrowing it down to 5, to be honest. Okay, first up is Bad Moon, which is honestly just one of my favorite werewolf movies, period, even without the wolf.
Yes.
It's a very simple story. I love the dynamic with the family. The dog is a very great actor.
Oh gosh. Oh.
And then the werewolf itself, who by the way is portrayed by Ken Kirsinger, who played Jason in Freddy vs. Jason.
So 3 of the most well-known Jasons
Have played werewolves.
Yes.
Yes. There's what I like about it is how wolf-like it looks, but at the same time there's something almost evil looking about it.
It does look very mean.
And there's a savagery to it in the way it attacks, and I just really love, like, my main issue with it is the fact that it doesn't really look like it has claws. But that's just, like, one minor quibble. Like, everything about it, the design, the bulkiness, that animatronic head, it just looks so mean and violent.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's my real sum of it. It looks like violence taken the form of a wolf.
Yeah. It's a really cool design.
Next is Skinwalkers, which we are going to do a review on because we have a lot of thoughts about.
We are going to do a long, like, practically a documentary.
Everyone has a thing, a movie or a TV episode or something that they are obsessed with for whatever reason. Skinwalkers is our obsession. And it's a weird one to have, but we'll explain why in the video. But these are probably my favorite Wolfman-style werewolves.
They're definitely my favorite.
Just the way they look, the fact that each one is very distinct and you can still recognize the person who plays them underneath. I do think the concept art is a little better in one case.
Yes.
But in other cases, I think they work really well. My only real quibble with the design is the fact that they use this CGI, which you don't really notice most of the time.
Yeah, most of the time you don't. It's just when you do,
it's bad.
It's really bad.
Stan Winston said they did this thing to make it look a little more animal-like, and most of the time you can't tell.
And I think also they made the eye color pop more.
Yeah, but then they did this. But then there's this part during the climax where the main villain werewolf, Varric, who's played by Jason Dare, he's about to face off against Jonas, the main good werewolf.
Are we about to talk about the face thing?
No, not the facing. He does this thing where in the lighting and with the CGI, it almost makes him look like a chipmunk.
Oh, I remember that.
And it just looks so...
Isn't it the way he tilts his head or something?
He does this thing... No, he tilts his head and he does this thing with his mouth that makes it look like he has buck teeth. And he looks like a chipmunk, and it's so bad
It looks like he's going...
And it looks so awkward, and just... It pretty much takes me out of the scene.
It's a little weird. Yeah.
But,
I'll talk about it more when I have it on my list.
Okay, Love, Death, and Robots, which just came out recently, and has an episode about werewolves. Now, I really like this one, and I also, because, to me, it's what... There's this community of werewolf people who think werewolves should have a very specific look, which is basically anthropomorphic wolves with human hands.
Yeah.
And I don't really agree with that. I think this is the closest to that I accept, because it is very much in that style, and the fact that the wolf faces, they do very much look like wolves.
Yeah.
But at the same time, they also don't. There's like this feral,
slightly
oversized design in the faces, and it works.
Yeah. No, it's a really good form. It kind of makes me think of a better version of, like, the gray wolf in Van Helsing.
Yeah, and they're also just really violent. I mean, that fight at the end of that short is beautiful. And like Van Helsing, they shed their skin when they transform.
Yeah.
Which can always be a cool design. But yeah, I just really liked the designs in that, and And just the way they displayed overall just the power of these creatures.
Yeah. Yeah, they're not on my list, but they are definitely an honorable mention for me. And I definitely get why you put it on yours. It's a really good one.
Mm-hmm. Cabin in the Woods.
Another good one.
We're going to do a review on because
we have a lot of conflicting
feelings.
Opinions about
the movie's a bit of a mess, but it also has some of my favorite monster designs in all of horror.
Yes.
One of my favorite werewolf designs, and also the Dragon Bat. I love the Dragon Bat. I wish the Dragon Bat got its own movie.
I know.
But no, I really love the Werewolf.
Mm-hmm.
And I like that because the movie was directed by Drew Goddard, who worked with Joss Whedon, and he said the werewolf design that he came up with, he said he was so nitpicky about it, but it came from his frustration with the werewolves on Buffy. Because he said they had too many cooks in the kitchen, and they came up and they made a possum.
Yeah.
Yeah, he called the werewolf a possum. And that he wanted to do what he thought a werewolf should look like.
Mm-hmm.
And in some ways it almost does look like something that would have popped, you would expect to pop up in like a bigger budget version of Buffy.
Yeah, I can see that. Absolutely.
The design.
I just love the story about how apparently Sigourney Weaver really cared about the werewolf.
She wanted to have lunch with the werewolf, and she wanted to make sure someone was sitting with the werewolf at lunch. And they did this big cast photo shoot where she's holding hands with Richard Cetrone in the wolf suit, which is also funny because Richard Cetrone was one of the Lycans in Underworld and was a creature performer for one of the other ones afterwards.
I think for a couple.
Yeah. He was also Ben's stunt double on Batman v Superman, for some more trivia.
Yeah, he's done a lot of work with Zack Snyder.
But my main quibble is the ears, actually. Ears are actually these ones, they kind of have this weird curve to them.
Mm-hmm.
But other than
the ears are a sensitive subject for you.
Yeah. I really love the snout and the teeth. The teeth look really great on this one. And I also like the decision they did where they made, instead of doing leg extensions, they made these legs that went on the side of the performer's real legs, and he was wearing green screen tights.
Yes. It was a great way to get around the difficulty of moving when they have the stilts or whatever, but still have those wolfish legs.
It felt like a great successor to the wolves in The Howling.
Yes, I absolutely agree.
And I just wish it had been in the movie more, because it's a really great... And it was put together by Norman Cabrera, who made the werewolf, a werewolf that I believe is on your list.
Oh, okay.
We'll talk about that when we get to it.
Yeah.
And then my final one is not from a movie or television show. It is from a comic, Ferals. Which is a comic I will talk about at some point because it's garbage and I hate it. I really hate it. It's gross, sexist, there's a lot of rape, a lot of graphic violence, but it's from the people who make Crust, so what was I expecting? Lots of fluffy bunnies and flowers, apparently. But,
Shut up and get your clothes on!
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it literally starts with a mutilated body where the guy's genitalia got ripped off and shoved down his throat.
Classy!
Yes. But the werewolves this is one of my favorite designs because it's this big, massive beast that has elements of a wolf, a bear, even a bit of cougar, but there's also something about it that also is subtly human, but not too human. It's just a very distinct animal that does that has elements of several, but also feels like it's own thing. Mm-hmm. And it's just the power, every page it was drawn in, you could just feel and just really pick up on just the size and the power and the ferocity of this thing. Mm-hmm. And it's such a cool design, and honestly, if they try to do it into a movie or TV show, which I hope to God they never do, because, oof. I know they would probably screw it up.
Yeah.
So it would probably be better in just sticking to comic book form. But yeah, garbage comic. It so,
Being on your favorite design list is not an endorsement of the actual thing.
Especially given the fact that in some ways it might be my favorite werewolf design. Mm-hmm. Just in terms of just the thought put into it. Seriously, though, never read the comic.
Alright, so my favorites. First I'm going to start off with Skinwalkers, since that's the main one we share. I really like the concept of the Wolfman designs, but like I said before with our dishonorable mentions, I'm really, really picky. I like there to be more effort put into it. I like there to be more than just someone with bad teeth and bad eyes and bad nails on a bad hair day. And it's funny because Skinwalkers actually kind of kick-started the return of the Wolfman design.
It really did.
And it's kind of frustrating because everything that came after it never really... Because I do think that the concept art ultimately was better, and they weren't able to quite capture what made the concept art so striking, especially with Sonya. But nothing after it captured it either. And it kind of got further and further away about what I really liked about the Skinwalker designs and concepts. I loved the way they all had their own personality. They were all distinct. Their fur usually pretty much matched up with like their hair and stuff. And
they also, the makeup was applied in a way where they could really do emote in specific.
Yes.
Because sometimes with werewolf makeup it's too tight. Not with this. Like, Jason Bear does things near the climax where he just looks evil, and I love it.
Oh, I know. He's he does so much with his face in the wolf form. I actually think it's his best acting in the movie, or some of his best acting ever. Because I think he was really, really into it too. I just really loved how you could see each actor, each character in their form. And each one was personal. There were some things I might would have changed. I might would have liked to have, like, ribs on Sonya. A little bit more bulk on her. They did kind of wimp out on her, but...
But she's gotta be sexy.
Well, I mean, you could still be sexy.
I know, they kept her in the bikini top.
Yeah,
the leather bikini top.
You could keep her in the bikini top and still give her a little bit more muscle mass on there. Some jutting out ribs like the guys have.
Yeah. Although, to be fair, Zoe's actually didn't have them quite on the same level of Varric or Grenier.
No.
And Jonas, I don't think, had the ribs either.
He might have. It's just he had a shirt on.
This is true.
And you really couldn't see his torso very well.
They might not have given him a full torso. I could be wrong.
I think they did, but they might not have bothered with the ribs on him since they were going to keep him mostly covered.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love this design, and I also, because probably the most well done after that would be like the Wolfman remake and the Wolves with Jason Momoa. Even though I liked those, the designs okay, or the quality okay, there was something about them that, like with the Wolfman, that one, the makeup in that just reminded me, and part of this was because of the way they moved. It reminded me too much of Rick Baker's makeup in Planet of the Apes remake by Tim Burton.
Mm-hmm.
Because he did the makeup in that one too. And the wolves moved very ape-like at times.
Yeah.
And the makeup, especially on Anthony Hopkins' character, on Lawrence. Wait, no,
No, John.
John.
Lawrence is
Lawrence
Benicio.
was the main one. His really felt gorilla-ish to me. And Lawrence's was kind of sad dog boy.
Yeah.
So I had problems with them. And then with the wolves,
they're more cat-like.
yes.
Like,
Or
especially
badger.
Yeah, the girls is a badger.
Yeah.
Wild Joe, or whatever his name is, his is extremely cat-like. And as a werecat, it looks really cool. It's honestly what I would... It honestly looks like a pretty good... It kind of makes me think of what Jacques would look like in live action from Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island.
Yes. Actually, that is exactly what it looks like.
Yeah.
I totally see what you're talking about. No, and I appreciate that they did full body versions.
What's funny with that, though, is originally Jason Momoa wasn't sure he wanted to do a full body. So they were like, okay, well, you're going to be in clothes, and we'll do the hands and the face. And he was like, that's cool. But then he saw what they were doing with Lucas Till, and he was like, you know what? Actually, I changed my mind. I want to do a full body.
He didn't want to get left out.
Yeah. Well, remember what Amber said. He really dislikes being ignored.
He's an attention hog.
Yeah.
But I don't think they were bad. They didn't. There was something a little too grim, but better done practical effects, and by that I'm talking about NBC's series Grimm.
Yeah, because I was going to say their wolves don't even have. Honestly,
I was talking about more of like the other animals.
Okay.
Because some of the other animals had like more animal form, anthropomorphic. Animal.
Yeah.
But yeah, like the girl looked kind of badgerish because of her fur design, and the guys looked cattish, and it just, to me, Skinwalkers did the best job at looking Wolfman-esque.
Yeah.
I think what worked for me was the Skinwalker forms. Now, Sonya's did have a bit of a cat-like element, but I think that's just because of Natasha's face structure.
Yeah.
And I think with a lot of female faces, it's harder to do the more canine.
Zoe's was the most canine looking, but I think that's partly because of Kim Coates' gigantic nose.
I think so too. And pointy chin.
Yeah.
He has kind of a angular face.
Yeah, he actually has a good face for a werewolf makeup.
Yeah. But I think what it is even if it didn't look super wolfish, it didn't make me think of other animals.
Mm-hmm.
It just, it was like monster versions of them.
Yeah.
Bestial versions of the characters. And I think that's why it worked better for me than a lot of these others that made me think of other animals. I'm not thinking of werewolves, I'm thinking of, Planet of the Apes people, or...
There was also just something about the wolves in that just had a very 80s feel to it.
It was very,
and it was a
very 80s movie.
And not just because I think they literally put Jonas in the same clothes of the werewolf from the Monster Squad, which was also done by Stan Winston.
Yeah. Okay, so next up on my list is, I think the one that you were talking about, that by the guy, is Fear Itself's episode.
Something with Bite, and yes, Norman Cabrera did the effects for that too.
This werewolf suit was also used later on, or a modified version of it was used later on in the Nickelodeon movie The Boy Who Cried Werewolf, which I actually haven't seen, but it sounds ridiculous in a really delightful way. But something with Bite, I actually really recommend, if you like werewolves, check this out. It's my favorite episode of Fear Itself, and it's one of my favorite werewolf stories.
What's funny is it never aired originally.
It's very charming.
Yeah, Fear Itself got canceled before it actually aired, and then I think they put it out a month or two later, and then it was on the DVD, which we own. But yeah, it's very, because a lot of times
it's different. It's a very unique take. Well, not so much a unique take on werewolves, but it's a unique story with werewolves. You don't see that kind of story told very often. You don't see these kinds of characters. And I really liked it.
They also kind of trick you.
Yeah.
With the plot, because they're literally setting it up that there's another werewolf who's killing people, and there's a character in the episode who was a complete asshole, and you're expecting it to be that guy because of the way he's hounding the main characters.
But we don't want to go into too deep spoilers.
Yeah.
Anyway, it has an interesting twist. If you like stories that are pro-werewolf, I highly recommend this. You'll love it.
Yeah.
You'll love it. It's very pro-werewolf, which I am partial to.
Mm-hmm.
The Fear Itself design, though, is actually kind of a modified version of the Cursed design. And it just takes that and makes it work.
Yeah.
It doesn't have the rabid Ewok vibe to it. It's a really well done suit. It looks good. It looks like a werewolf. And I really like it. The eyes really stand out to me. It has a good snout. And it's kind of got a little bulk, but it isn't too...
Yeah.
Too bulky. Next up is going to be a form that I actually initially did not like very much, but over the years I have grown to really appreciate, and a lot of it is for just the creep factor of the design for me, and that's dog soldiers.
Mm-hmm.
Which I always thought was an interesting movie, a fun werewolf movie and monster movie, but I at first found it's a very unique design.
My issue with the design in the beginning was how much they showed it at the end, because it kind of made it lose some of its punch, whereas in the earlier parts where you just see the kind of that silhouette running through the woods after them, there's something so eerie and gothic about it.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of like seeing it because...
Well, no, I did too. I'm saying that
yeah.
Compared to how it's shown in the beginning and then the end, it kind of... Seeing it too much...
I get what you mean. But... And the way they made the stunt performers, creature performers...
And just how tall they are.
And the body language they have...
Yeah.
Is very, very creepy. It's a very unique and different design, and it did take me a little while to warm up to it, because it is just like a big, maney wolf head on like this long, hairless, gray body, but it's so sinister looking, and they're so mean.
Yeah.
They're so mean and so smart. And I just really love that design now. I also will admit that I am a huge fan of leaner designs for the most part. And now you kind of go back and forth on which you prefer, but I have always been more of a bipedal werewolf person.
I am of the opinion, I think it really depends on the character and the
design
and the story.
Yeah.
And the setting. Like, because I feel like more humanoid werewolves work better in a city setting, just because in that And not to say that more wolf-like ones can't work in a city, but I think especially if it's a more humanoid one and it's like hunting someone, there's that silhouette that makes you think it's a person until they get too close and then it's too late. Whereas, and then when you get into like the woods, you can just have like this big animal running on all fours after people.
Yeah. I personally have always leaned towards the bipedal design. That's just me. So I like the leanness of the dog soldiers.
Yeah.
And their hands.
Oh, yeah.
Their hands are so creepy.
Mm-hmm.
Next up is Underworld. But not actually the first one. And not the Lycans. But the werewolves. And if you aren't familiar with the Underworld series, there actually is a difference. I'm not getting into what the difference is, but if you've seen pictures, you've probably seen that there's some that are more like this big black monster, and then some that are more like a wolf monster. And the wolf monster, that's the werewolves. The black, not very distinct animal monsters are, or panther-ish.
Yeah, panther.
The panther-ish monsters are the Lycans. And I like the Lycan designs okay, but I just wouldn't put it on my favorites. But the werewolf designs, that is one of my favorites. It's also very close to my fifth and most favorite werewolf design. But I just love the way I love their long snouts, their ears and head, the body proportions.
Yeah.
The fur on, just covered in fur, thick, coursey fur. I really, really love that design. That is pretty much the closest to perfect werewolf design for my taste that we've gotten. I say that just because you've seen their full bodies. As far as faces go, what's up next? Those are my favorite faces, heads.
And I know what this is.
And they're very similar. They're very similar.
Probably because they were made by the same people.
Yes. So last, certainly not least, definitely most favorite is the werewolves from Trick or Treat.
Mm-hmm.
Gosh, I love these ladies.
Yeah. Sadly, we don't see it enough.
Yeah. I wish we had gotten a full body, but I know they were on a tight budget and everything and schedule. They have a leaner face than the Underworld werewolves, I think. Darker, thicker fur. I like their fur a little bit more. But what really, really, really seals the deal for me is the eyes. They have some of the best werewolf eyes. I think Trick or Treat and Skinwalkers are my two favorite werewolf eyes.
Yeah.
And I am a big, big fan of the amber eyes. And that's probably my main complaint with the Underworld werewolves is they don't have amber eyes. I think they just have black eyes. Or William, he has white eyes. And a little bit of blood shot at the pupil. A little bit of red at the pupil of the Trick or Treat wolves. And just those big yellow eyes. So cool. And their teeth, I love them. Absolutely love them. I hope one day that Michael Dougherty will do another werewolf movie, like a full werewolf movie. And we'll maybe get like a full body version of that. Or maybe we'll see something in a Trick or Treat 2 or 3. Maybe.
If we ever get to that.
One day, please. But yeah, so that's... Put the Trick or Treat head on an Underworld werewolf body, and you've basically got my perfect werewolf.
Yeah, I didn't even talk about one of mine just because it's not really it's not really a movie or TV, and it's basically for an RPG, but in terms of... Because you have various people who argue about what type of werewolf they like, and I'm sometimes of the opinion of, why not just select all of them?
Yeah.
And you do Werewolf the Apocalypse or Werewolf the Forsaken, where your character can literally turn into every single variation of the werewolf.
Pretty
the Wolfman
much.
type, the Big Van Helsing type, the Hellhound type, and then a regular wolf.
Yeah. There you go. You have the best of all worlds.
Exactly.
I do like that, actually. Excuse me. So, honorable mentions. For me, Howling and the female werewolves in The Howling Reborn. And you're probably, if you're familiar with those wolf forms, you're probably going, wow, what a shock. Those don't look anything like her other choices. Cabin in the Woods would also be an honorable mention for me. I do like that form, and love Death and Robots. But Howling, the reason it's just a honorable mention is I think ultimately the final execution was a little too rodent-y. I've seen a bust of the original design, I think it was.
Yes, they had a puppet, a full-size puppet that just kind of fell apart before it came time to do the movie.
Which is really sad because that actual design and execution...
It's a great design. And it's basically
looks really good.
And it's basically what a lot of the people who work in Howling-related things treat as canon. Like, even in the recent sequel comic.
Yes.
Like, the design is more in tune with that than in the movie.
And a lot of any Howling figurines or busts or anything, they just go with that design.
Yeah.
And it is a very, very cool design. And if you see that head, you won't be surprised that I'm giving it an honorable mention. The Howling Reborn is Twilight-inspired garbage.
Yeah.
But I do really like the female forms. There are two female werewolves, and they have the best forms. Unfortunately, we don't see them the best, and there's too much shaky cam.
Yeah, the cameraman has a seizure during the climax.
Jeez. But what you can see of them is really cool.
Yeah.
I like it. Another it for us is Ginger Snaps, the Ginger Snaps trilogy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we talked about that a little. Even though you don't see it very well, number 2 probably has the best one. The ones in number 3 are okay, and...
Yeah, yes. You don't get the best look at it in number 2, but there was a lot of behind-the-scenes video and pictures that came out that really show it off.
Yeah.
And just how cool-looking it is.
Mm-hmm.
American Werewolf in London, which I know you disagree with me on.
Agree to disagree.
If Bad Moon is violence personified as a wolf, London, to me, is rage personified as a wolf. There's just something...
Very angry about it.
Yes, about the face. It just looks like it's just ready to kill everything. My main problem with the design is its little dinky legs. They're just like these little stick legs. And...
It kind of looks like a cranky, oversized Pomeranian. You've got all that fur and then these little legs. Like...
Well, not just like the torso is built like a bear.
Yeah.
And then it has these...
But, I mean, you know, Pomeranians with all that fur, you can't see how tiny their bodies are, so they look bigger. They look like little blobs with teeny little legs.
Yeah, kind of like that. And it's annoying because I really do, like, I really love... The face might be my favorite werewolf face, just in the design, the rage, and the teeth, and just... It really looks like something that could kill you in, like, immediately.
Yes.
The second it gets a hold of you. And there's also a secondary design that's not really shown very well, but you can kind of see it in behind the scenes, and there's a still of it where right at the end of the transformation, the face is different. It was actually a concept of the face that they made into that they made into a head. And I think you like that one more than the final design.
I did, actually.
And
I
that
remember
was
seeing that,
and
I
that
liked...
and that was actually one of Patrick Tatopoulos' inspirations for designing the Lycans in Underworld.
Which, now that you mention that, I see that.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely see it.
If American Werewolf in London had the body structure and the limbs of the Paris Wolf, but with the fur and head of London, that would be my ideal quadruped werewolf.
Mm-hmm. So that's been our favorite and least favorite werewolf forms, our top 5s.
As you can tell, we are very passionate about werewolves.
Yes. They're one of our favorite... Actually, they're my favorite monster.
My favorite, too.
We don't get enough variety in werewolf media.
Yeah, especially when you could look at vampires.
Mm-hmm. We're always consuming different werewolf media and things, and, you know, if you get into the monster community, werewolf forms are a hot topic for some.
Yeah.
But, you know, everyone has their preferences, and unfortunately, some people are like, no, this is how werewolves should look, and, you know, you like what you like. We should get more variety in werewolf forms.
Yeah.
Is what I'm gonna say.
And better quality in werewolf media.
Yeah. Yeah, that too. That has been the top 5 best and worst, for us, werewolf forms.
Maybe sometime we'll do something on vampires.
Yeah, maybe. If you enjoyed, give us a like, maybe subscribe. We talk about lots of monsters, superheroes, everything in between.
Monster superheroes.
Even better.
Well, until next time, I'm Rob.
And I'm Jess.
And have a good one.